have a presentation, and I sent them the schedule. They said, oh, you're going to be the last. And I said, yes. And my youngest son, he's quite euphoric. He said, oh, they saved the best for last. And my oldest son says, no, you're the leftovers. So I've seen 2 presentations which I really enjoyed. The one from Nazine I really enjoyed, and the other one from Mitch I really enjoyed. So I'm definitely not going to we're not going to have the best for last, but let's try not to make the leftovers here. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. I've been now working at Statista for more than 2 years. Time went quickly. And I was taking over from the 2 founders. And I just realized that I don't have a single chart of what we do, which is weird because I always anticipate, since I'm working 24/7 for the company, that everybody knows what we are doing. But for those who don't know Statista, it's a company that's selling data. And it's a company selling data when it comes to market data, consumer panels, competitive data, market development data. And our products are sold globally. So our biggest market is the United States, and then Europe, and then Asia. We sell across all industries. Our customer ranges go from Google to Daimler to BASF to the CIA actually is our customer. I always wonder what kind of data the CIA doesn't have that we have. So it's quite an interesting product. It's quite an interesting product. And that's why I joined. It's a B2B product, so we're not really focusing on B2C. All right, here we go. This is me. First, I'm not a professional presenter. I try to remember when was the last time I was on stage, not doing an all hands in the company, but actually talking to people I don't know. It's a long time ago. I think it's like, I haven't never done it for Statista. So last time I think it was for Klarna, which was quite a bit a while back. So I'm old. I just realized with Raphael, we passed 50. That means I was actually going to university when Netscape was still a thing. And when like a 28K modem was fast. So that was a high-speed modem, right? You had the 14.4 and the 7.4. So the 28K was a fast modem. Now, being old has some disadvantages, right? When you get up in the morning, your back hurts, has some advantages because you've seen quite a few things. Another thing about me is I feel that I've seen a bit, and the formatting is a little bit weird. I agree with Nasreem. But also, I'm a weird person because when I was interviewing for Statista and also for other companies, and they say to me, so what's your domain expertise? And I would say, I have none. I'm not a great marketing person. I'm not a great product development person. I'm definitely not an engineer. I'm not a finance person. And I always try to ask myself, what am I really good at? And I don't know. I think over time, I became quite good in building good teams. I think over time, I became good in identifying talent in terms of who has potential to drive the company forward. I think over time, since I've seen so many things, I become better in understanding patterns, what's happening in the industry, and what does it mean for our organization. But I'm not really an expert. So don't expect to get a presentation which is as fancy as the one from Mitch on where the product organization or the product world is going to and what's happening to the digital world. It's going to be more real time. What do I, as a CEO, see when it comes to product development? And maybe that's useful for you. I hope it's useful for you, right? Good. These are the companies I worked for. So I've worked for Klarna. I've worked for About You. As a board member, actually. I was CEO of My Taxi and Free Now. I was CEO of a company called Statista. Chembra, I'm on the board of directors. And the others, I served either as a portfolio management board member or as a CEO. So quite a lot of tech, but no industry expertise, none. Yes. So coming to Statista, I have to go here because I'm old, so I have to look at this, and I don't want to go back all the time. Statista is a super successful company, right? I mean, it was founded by 2 former consultants, and they came with the idea of research was a big pain in the neck for consultants, and a little bit on how to create delight. They said, if I can take that pain away and make it very happy and easy for customers or for consultants to research, that would be great. So they started to consolidate a lot of information, a lot of data, put it into a database, made it searchable. So basically, I think their idea was, let's create a Google for professional market data, right? And it was quite working well. And they had a very plain vanilla growth strategy. It was product-led growth par excellence, even though none of them were product managers. The first one is we produce data. So we either produce data right now, about 70% of our data is proprietary, 30% is sort of openly available, but unstructured, and we structure it. So we collect statistics, and you can find statistics on anything on our website. So on what are the largest non-alcoholic beverage producers in Latin America. And what we do is we don't only provide the data points, but we have data editors, and they put context to those data points. So they would write a short description about the statistics in terms of these are the biggest one, that's are the biggest trends, and they put it into relation to other things they see in the market. That means from a SEO perspective, I think without strategy, just by chance, they actually realized that this is amazing SEO content. So what they did is they're producing all those statistics, then they're producing sort of the descriptions to this, which led to an insane high SEO traffic that we were getting. More than 35, 36 million visitors every month on free traffic. And then the business model was simple. What we did is, well, we made it valuable because we didn't give it away for free. The first click on a statistic when you come to our site was for free. And then, of course, we're very good at, here's another one that might interest you. And then this is behind a paywall, and you have to sign up for it. So it was like a lead generation engine that was that they built based on the core product. So from my understanding, not being a product owner and not being a product expert, it's very good product-led growth. Because you build a product, you sort of put it out there, you create an acquisition funnel, customers sign up automatically, and then you have a very, very strong lead sales funnel that you can actually go after and then convert them into paying customers. So this actually led to a success story of Statista, where the company was growing for 10 years between 15 and 25% every year without ever raising any external money. So it's a bootstrap company, which I like a lot because I was working on the other end, where at the high times when I was CEO of FreeNow, we were burning through 300 million euros a year on vouchers on ride-hailing. That wasn't a lot of fun, to be honest. So I was happy to finally work in a company that has a very, let's say, reasonable and economic viable approach to running a business. But when we looked at 2023, things turned a little bit sour. And I joined in Q4 2023, so at the low point. And the reasons for this were manifold. A little bit customer retention issues, a little bit our conversion didn't really work, a little bit we didn't really reinvent how our platform was sort of serving the customer. So I think the product delight part that we heard in the other presentation, we were a little bit too much on the, well, let's get the basics right, and even then we weren't really good. We were focusing very much on let's create a good data asset and not so much on let's improve also our product and our search experience and our data discovery experience. So then we actually worked together with Leland, who is sitting right in the front row, and he helped us to put a little bit more product-centric management approach into our company. And we were asking, what is the biggest customer problem to solve? And not really surprisingly, the biggest customer problem to solve was helping the customer find the data they are looking for. That sounds like an easy task in terms of how hard can it be to find a statistic. You have a search bar and you just put in what you want and then you get the number. It's quite difficult because sometimes we have very complex databases. When we do a global customer survey, you actually need to understand SQL to really retrieve the data points that you want to really make sure that you get the right data. We have more than 1.3 million statistics in our database, so we also don't want to spam the user. If he puts in leading beverage producers in the United States, you would get 150 statistics, and you don't want the users to scroll through this. So helping them to find the data they are looking for and not just sort of spamming them with a lot of information because our search algorithm wasn't really good and our sort of structure of the website wasn't really good. That was really the key problem that we needed to solve. And that's why we basically defined a new vision for our core, let's say, digital product, the platform, so the interface on how to access to our data. And as I said, we did a lot of user interviews. And this was product development one-on-one. Very simple, nothing really new, right? We started with, let's define a customer problem. Then we went and tested it with wireframes with customers, how would they react to it, and so on. We then got some feedback, we improved on it, and then we launched it, and then we improved. And round we went, and we suddenly saw an increase in retention, we saw an increase in conversion, and things started to look good again. And we could also see this in two main initiatives that came out of this one. The first initiative, what we called guided search. And guided search was the idea of let's combine an LLM-based search approach with a normal structured search approach that we have on our website that would guide the customer better so he doesn't or she doesn't get 50 or 100 or 150 results when they were looking for any kind of topic. And we would guide them in terms of suggesting filters while they were searching or helping them to refine their search and sort of suggesting them easier ways to find the data that they are looking for. And that was actually quite successful. And the second thing was about collections. And This was one of the most interesting topics because one thing is, what we found out is that customers, they start looking for a single data point or maybe a time series of data. So how did this market develop over time? But what they really valued was when they got this one data piece, if we would give them context that was sort of contextualizing this data piece in terms of if you have, I don't know, biggest car producers of EVs, we also provided them with, and here's EV charging infrastructure, and here are sort of battery price points that we're developing over time, and here are sort of supply chain constraints reports. So giving them dynamic collections, depending on their search results, on other topics that might be of interest to them was actually highly rated. So these were the two things. We kept it very simple. We said, let's not overwhelm our customers, focus on this one. And we actually saw that numbers were getting up again. Right, we were quite happy, growth was going up again, and I was like, yes, we got the company under control, we're back to double-digit growth, and in Q4, everybody was celebrating a very nice Christmas. Now, maybe we're not the smartest and not the fastest to realize things, but also there is a big thing that sort of happened to us, and that was a back swarm, and that is, for me, agentic AI. And of course, we already start building our own, what we called research AI product. So it's an LLM-based, open, ChatGPT-based LLM that we run on our website that taps into our proprietary data. But honestly, this together with guided search is sort of the same thing. It just feels a little bit different from the customer interface. But what generative AI actually did was it fundamentally transformed how the industry researches data. It wasn't about how we can make our platform better. It changes everything, how everyone, also in the future, will do research. And that led to the following thing. We had to completely rethink our business model. This is not about what we heard from the UBS in terms of let's take an existing process, customer conversation, and let's support it by AI. If you think about, if you go to ChatGPT and ask them, can you give me the top suppliers for non-alcoholic beverages? ChatGPT will give you an answer. Why would anyone come to Statista and buy data from me? And another thing that happened is, suddenly you don't need to be an expert researcher anymore that knows how to handle complex tools. Like we have a very complex tool on our website to dig through like cross-tabulation for our global consumer service where you can drill down in every sort of possible functions, but you need a training to do this. Suddenly you can ask and prompt a machine and saying, I would like to know what is the best target group for when I want to sell, I have no idea, high fashion clothes for women in the age group of and how big is the target group? You didn't need to learn how to use a tool anymore, and you don't need to learn SQL. Now, if that is true, we were actually thinking, is our company value at risk at all? And is sort of selling data in the world of generative AI something that still has value and that we can monetize? And there was a big relief. There was a big, 3 months, I was really worried. But after 3 months, after lots of conversations and after lots of trial and error also from our customers, we had many customers, 7-8%, that churned within 3 months because they say, we don't need Statista anymore. We're just going to have ChatGPT. We recovered almost 90% of them in the next 3 months because they realized that ChatGPT is a great, I tell my kids, it's like, think about it as a very intelligent consultant. And you ask that consultant to do a strategy project with your company. If you do not let that consultant in your company open up your books, let them see all the reports, your strategies, your products, give them inside information, they will come up with a strategy, but the strategy will not be as good as someone who has been working with you for 3 months and you give all the details. And the same thing for researchers, doing research with ChatGPT and not having ChatGPT accessing trustworthy and complete data pools. And that was the biggest relief for us. So our data asset was still valuable as long as it's factually correct, trustworthy, structured, and curated and annotated with a lot of metadata to it. And we can have a whole lot of separate session only on the data part because it's quite interesting. But in general, our relief was, yes, our data is still valuable, but the key realization that we have is, and that was a transformation for our business. We realized that our product was our Statista.com platform, basically is not our key asset. It's not our product. People don't buy Statista because they want to go to Statista.com. They buy it because they want to have access to our data. And suddenly we had an interface that would give a much easier access to our data. And I'm very happy that we had the presentation from Mitch before, because he was talking about sort of a front end or a future where there don't exist front ends anymore. And we have internally annotated as we're going to be a headless data company. We don't need Statista.com anymore to provide that value to our customers. Actually, we can provide the value to our customers with our data much better if we don't force them to come to our website, but if we populate our data into all the different value streams and work streams where the customer is actually working in. Why would I force a strategy consultant that's doing a presentation for, I don't know, Continental Tires to do an analysis or do a market chart in terms of who are the biggest competitors and what are their market shares development? Why would I force them to leave PowerPoint, come to Statista, do the research, download the data table, import it into ThinkCell, and then build a chart in ThinkCell to actually put into the PowerPoint presentation? Doesn't make any sense. Or even different, or even worst case, McKinsey is one of our largest customers. They have more than 2,000 seats with us in India for their research team. And why would that consultant write an email to the research team in India with, please list me the biggest suppliers or producers of whatever, beverages or tires or whatever, and then 48 hours later, you will get that answer. If you could have it in real time, because the question that's been asked by the consultant is the same as a prompt you would now put into ChatGPT if you would populate ChatGPT with our data or give access to our data. So it completely changed the way how we saw our company and our asset. The second thing is, and that's a tough realization, we are not the end product. Data is not the end product. We're an ingredient. We are like flour when you want to bake a cake or waffles or something, right? You want to have the waffles. You don't want flowers. You need flowers to get the waffles done. And same with us. What the people want is they want a market entry strategy. We're just providing data to create that market entry strategy. Or they want to do a competitive analysis, or they want to do a benchmark report for their annual report statement. We're never the end product. And it's not really good for my ego, because I like being the end product, but it's a reality. But if you're not the end product, we shouldn't force people to leave their core products and their core value streams to do something which is not their end product, and then come back to the end product. Think about it as you're working in sales, and you want to prepare for a new sales meeting. And you're in Salesforce, which is your end product, because that's amazing. You work every day in Salesforce for 8 hours. And then you see there's an upcoming meeting with that and that client, and you want to renew the contract, or you have a quarterly update meeting. Why would that person have to go to Statista just to get market information on the competitors, see the latest trends? Because we have all these reports on our website. Why don't we just populate it into Salesforce, so when you open up the client, you immediately get highlights of latest development in the industry. These are the market developments. This is market share development, positive, negative, and these are the benchmarks of the competitors. This is what we should do. So, our platform is not our core product, it's data. And if data is our core product, we're not the end product, we're an ingredient. Now, what does that mean for product development if those two realizations are true? That means everything will change. Our whole organization was focused on this is our platform, and all our development resources went, this is our platform. We just launched collections. We just launched, guided search. And suddenly we say, we don't want to force a customer to our platform. What we want is, we want our customer using our data on a daily basis. And they will never come to Statista.com on a daily basis, because we're just an ingredient. Now, this means research will not belong to experts anymore. LLMs will enable us that everyone without a formal training on how to do research on databases can do this. The second thing is, research won't stand alone anymore. Research is not a task per se. If you are a journalist, and a lot of big journalists have access to Statista because they want to have research information to write an article, we've built an application that basically says, now you get an RSS newsfeed in your tool, you click on that newsfeed, and we automatically populate all the relevant information to that newsfeed. You don't have to search for it anymore. It's much easier to get background information you want to write an article. The next one is, data is not the final product, it's an ingredient. And finally, data must live within the tools which are daily usage tools of our customers. This will increase usage and conversion. What that means is that our wonderful platform, who served all these nice use cases and things, we said, this will not last. I have a personal bet that within the next 24 to maximum 30 months, our platform will be nothing but a marketing front end. A landing page where interested customers can get informed about this, but we will not have customers doing research on our proprietary infrastructure. or front-end infrastructure. It will not happen. This will change. Telling this to, we have about 1,300 people, was quite a shocking moment for them. Because for them, it was all about, look, we have all this SEO visibility and everybody comes to our platform and then we convert them. This will change. And if it changes, we have to change our product. So the transition is, what we have to do is we have to come from a destination for research to a data as a service provider. Now, everything as a service, we have software as a service and music as a service and whatever have you a service, but also data isn't, as we're not an end product, we have to be a service to another end product. And this mindset shift also needs to be reflected, and mostly be reflected on how we build. What is our product going forward, our technical product going forward? It will completely change. Now, the thing is, if you have this kind of transformation, you cannot do it as we did with Leland, where you do customer interviews and you put in some wireframes and then you do some A/B testing and you iterate on this one. Those frameworks don't work anymore. The normal product development frameworks don't work anymore. You can't do A/B testing if you do a complete 180-degree transformation of your business. What you have to do is, you have to take a risk. You have to take a leap of faith. Because you cannot test your way to success. If you see this happening, you say, okay, either we try to optimize our website and hope everything will be good, or we go in a completely different direction where we have very little skills. We have no idea how an API-first company looks like. We have no idea how we integrate best into different ecosystems. We have no idea how our pricing infrastructure should look like. We have no idea how to issue API keys which have parents and child relationships and all that stuff that you need to have if you want to integrate as a data as a service provider. Now, what we did over the last 9 months, we started to rebuild. So we rebuilt our databases because you can imagine that our data structure was optimized for displaying the data on our website because we controlled the front end, we controlled how the data was displayed and how it could be modified and manipulated in our front end. Now, if you don't know what the front end looks anymore, because there might be 1,000 front ends going forward, how people are interacting with our data, you have to restructure, we needed to restructure our data architecture. The second thing that we need to do is I have to go closer here. Oh yeah, I'm really getting all many glasses. We needed to streamline the way how we produce our data, because what we really needed to find out is we were very much, our data production process was very people-driven, and it was focused by experts who could identify a good source from a bad source, and then could provide context if they find a good source to why is this data relevant and why is this data trend like this and what is happening in a political environment and commercial environment, so they get all this context. And we needed to think about how do we want to produce data going forward if we want to work as a headless data company. Is actually are industry reports still relevant, yes or no? Should we focus more on structured data and data points instead of really contextualizing data? What is really valuable in an AI-first context? The third thing that we had to do is, as I said, we need to completely rethink our pricing logic. We were selling seat-based access. You buy a seat, you get unlimited access. Well, it works well. We have 2,000 McKinsey seats sold. That's the biggest account, or second biggest account that we have. Now, if you don't sell seats anymore because we just provide them with an API, you have to come to a usage or consumption-based model. This is completely, how do you price this? Who has an idea on how to price from coming from a seat-based model to a consumption-based model? Who can anticipate what level of consumption is a good level of consumption? So this will be difficult. Do you put in retainer fees? Do you do minimum consumption levels? All these things, first we have to strategize and then we have to build them because they're not existent. And last but not least, we had to think about what is the best way to populate our data into different ecosystems, because there is no industry standard. Especially if you think your ecosystems or our ecosystems are mainly generative AI products, like LLMs, like Claude, like Perplexity, and so on. And as you could see in the last 6 months, 9 months ago, we thought we have to build a super API suite and everything. Now, thank God we have good product people and good engineers. They pivoted to the MCP structure, so Model Context Protocol, that now is used for every generative AI tools, especially for the agentic space, to actually navigate through different data providers. And I think this is so new for us that we cannot, those normal planning routines, we were running in an OKR system for every quarter, we were defining objectives and so on. It cannot happen if things are moving so fast. And we have unexperienced buyers, which are our clients, with unexperienced sellers, which is us because it's a completely new product, with a completely unexperienced ecosystem partners. Because you don't expect that Perplexity knows what they are doing, at least when it comes to integrating partners, because it's new for them. It's new for Microsoft Copilot as well. So everything is new. So when we come to the first one, our platform is not our core asset, our data is our first asset. I'm going to give you now a couple of examples to make it a little bit more tangible what has happened. We actually build Aira. Aira is an AI research assistant. It's a crawler bot that we've built because we realized that there's a lot of time wasted for our researchers, not only looking for the right data source, but then sort of copying data from one point to another, formatting in the right way and so on. And also data updating was a very cumbersome process. And I'm going to give you my insights or our insights where we almost took a wrong turn. And thank God we didn't take a wrong turn. Because what we did, this was our research it's not a pretty picture, I know, but sort of this was what we felt our research looked like from the outside, like an old shovel boat. And it's hard to see. And then we said, okay, we have this amazing tool called Generative AI right now, so we're going to supercharge this. And our biggest concern is that we would end up with this. Saying, let's take AI, and I don't want to bash on anyone who presented earlier, but taking AI and sort of don't changing your core processes, that's a risky game because you don't fully utilize the potential. And you don't build an airplane if you do this. If you say I'm on a boat and I just want to move the boat faster, you never come to the idea of building an airplane. So what we suggest for everyone and what we made our firm commitment in the company saying, whenever we want to use AI to drive efficiency or make a new core process, we start with zero base. We always start with the end product. How do we get to this end point? And then we say, how do we do this without a single human being? And as we learned in the other speech, there are some problems that AI cannot solve. So we will need a human in the loop. And sometimes it has to be extensive, and sometimes it has to be less extensive, and sometimes it can be fully automated. And then we define sort of, okay, this is zero base. First we do AI. How far do we get? Do we get to 70, 80%, 90%, maybe 95% of the solution? And the next question do we ask, do we need 100%? Maybe we don't need 100%. Maybe the customer doesn't pay value or see value for getting 100%. Then we stop there. Or we say, yes, we need 100%. Maybe we can even go further because suddenly we have resources available that were blocked before, and we can even build a much better product. But this is really my biggest sort of learning is, don't use AI to improve existing processes. This is, A, it's not a lot of fun, and B, I think you're missing out on huge potential. And this is how it looks right now. So I should have taken actually the former research process also shown, because then you would see the change better. But basically what we've done is we've automated 95% of our work, where human intelligence and the expertise of our researchers is only used for two things. It's used for identifying the best sources on a given topic, because that's what customers are paying us for. They say, I get a lot of answers in ChatGPT, but I don't know whether these answers I can trust because I don't know the sources. And I have to make sure, and I don't want to spend time, and only 70% or more of professional users of ChatGPT or other LLMs, they're not verifying the sources and the information that ChatGPT is basing the answers from. And if I'm a CEO, I would go bananas if that would be true in my company, because I have to make sure I don't mind people using ChatGPT or Claude or any other LLM or Gemini. I do care if they don't verify whether the answer given and provided and the sort of the solutions taken out of this one are actually based on verified data. So people are used for make sure that we have the right sources, and people are used for contextualizing the collected data, because that's something that ChatGPT or any other LLM cannot do very well. That means if I see any kind of trend line and development, we can automatically produce a short text that describes this is a development and these are the numbers and there's a gain or a loss, but they cannot explain why the loss happens. And there you need industry expertise, and you need to connect the dots. Was there political change? Was there, I don't know, is there a competitor coming up? Was there regulation in the tax regime? There are so many things where you need human expertise to really think what is the important from the unimportant stuff that explains the numbers. And that's where we're spending so much more time now, since we liberated the resources that were formerly blocked in just doing, let's say, reproductive work. Now, so in the old part was really, as I mentioned, we had 80% on pure operative stuff, and 20% when it comes to context. And with a new product, or with a new, not only product, it's not only AIRA, but with it's not only that the process changed and the technology changed, we also completely reorganized our entire data team. Nothing looks like before. Different org structure all the way from the C-level all the way to the last employee. We had to hire completely new profiles. They weren't existing in the organization. If we want to fully automate this process, we needed different profiles. And we also had to let go a lot of people because we just didn't need this massive amount of researchers, since we just selected, and it sounds harsh, but the most talented and knowledgeable researchers, and we really had to let go 80 people of the team. And that's also a tough reality. But I think if you don't do it this way, and if you're not as aggressive and try to build the best way possible, you will lose out. And if you lose out, somebody will be as aggressive and they will win, and you will lose market share. Now, to a little bit more fun parts. We are not the end product. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, does it? But it is actually quite fun, because I think it's much more exciting. We have so much more opportunities if we realize that we're not the end product. We shouldn't force people to our side, but let's think about where our data could live, in which kind of ecosystems, use cases, process flows, and so on. And that's why we built a product called Statista Connect. I know it's a super inspiring name, nobody ever heard of it, but for us it was quite easy because people understand. It's like connecting our data into any kind of problem that you might have. And we have a first version of this data as a service. And I think it really hits a market sentiment, because what you see in professional usage, and I'm not talking about the individual user that says, I want to have a recipe for how to make a good, I don't know, waffle. I mean, that's okay if you don't have the perfect number. But I think if you want to do a market entry strategy, or if you want to make sure, or you want to do, I don't know, market research, or you want to buy a competitor and do due diligence, you better make sure that you're basing your numbers or your recommendations on correct numbers. And the biggest problem that we see right now is, or companies are referring to us saying, AI is amazing, but I need to feed it with reliable data, because if I don't do this, I will get answers, but I will get answers on the training data or on freely available scrapable data, and that is not good enough in a professional context. The second thing is that I mentioned that fewer than 30% of all the users are actually verifying the answers that they get from an LLM. And me as a company leader and all the other executives in my team, this is a high risk. If we have employees working with those tools and this data is not verified, there's a high risk of making bad decisions. Now, oh, here comes a video. Here should come a video. Let's see if Technic works.
As one of the world's leading business data platforms, you can already trust and utilize our data. Now you can make your experience faster, automated, and fully customizable. Harness the power of Statista precisely when, where, and how you need it with Statista Connect. Create a tailored experience according to your requirements and make Statista an integrated part of your business. With Statista Connect, you can customize data visualization, research processes, automated data updates, report generation, and integrate directly into your decks, video, spreadsheet, chatbot, analysis tools, intranet, portal, knowledge management tool. The list is as long as you want to make it. Contact your account manager today or visit our website to find out how you can gain access to this powerful service.
All right, now we go to the next one. So Statista Connect basically opens up the potential of making our data available into any given ecosystem, which is a fundamental shift on how we serve our customers. And we were able to sign very quickly Copilot, Perplexity, we just signed. I don't know if I'm supposed to say. Anyway, OpenAI, we have fast negotiations with Claude. We've signed with large platforms like Langdocs and so on. The need of all those large players is the same. They say, if we want to go into the professional space, we need to have verified data that people can buy. It's a little bit, they are providing the sort of the front end, they are providing the usage layer. And then you have the intelligence layer of the LLM, and then you need the data layer underneath to actually make it work in a professional environment. Now I have another example for you, which is Langdoc, and another video, so please play the video.
Introducing Statista for Langdoc. Now you can power your AI platform with verified data from Statista. Simply submit your research question, and LangDoc will search across all your connected sources to find the most relevant insights. Build custom assistants powered by the LLM of your choice, including ChatGPT 5, Gemini, Claude, and many more. Fully customize how your answers get structured, cited, and delivered, complete with original Statista charts or dynamically generated tables and graphs. Get presentation-ready insights for any topic in under 60 seconds backed by Statista's fact-checked database of over 50,000 trusted sources. Leverage hallucination-free AI, grounded in Statista's expert-verified data. Test Statista for LangDoc today.
I like this today at the end. It's really my favorite. I know I tried to kill it out of the video, it just doesn't work. But why is this important? Let's go back to LangDoc here. In the past, you could only search for given statistics or reports. Now what you can do is, and it's quite fun, this is like the delight moment. People go in and say, I want to have, I don't know, how many electric vehicles were registered as of January 2025 in Germany. And you get a number. And then you say, oh, can you please list it by brands and by units? And then you get a complete Excel sheet or a table saying, here are all the brands and here are the units. And then you say, oh, could you please add 2024 because I want to see development. You get the 2024 data. And then you say, okay, there are 68 manufacturers or brands. Can you please show the top 10 and group the others in others? You can all do this in a chat and an interface, which is so different to what our customers have been using our data before, where they had to download the 2024 numbers, the 2025 numbers, put it into Excel, modify everything. It's just a completely different experience for people interacting with such a huge vast database that we have. I don't know if we have time for the video because I'm a little bit over time. Yeah? Okay, Rafael's giving me a heads up. Okay, we have one more for Canva because it's a little bit different use case. It just shows the potential that it's not only Gen AI implications, of course they're a major driver, but for Canva we have another application.
With the Statista app in Canva, uniting data and design is fast, powerful, and easy. Step 1. Simply open the Statista data app. Step 2. Connect your Statista account or sign up for one at statista.com.
And of course you only have to do that
Step
once,
3.
right? Not every time
With
you use it.
Statista now fully integrated into Canva, simply search for the data you need. Let's try AI traffic generation. Select the data and add directly to your project. Utilize customization options and level up your project with expert verified insights. Connect Statista with Canva today to powerfully unite data with design.
Now, why do I think this is an interesting use case? Because we've never thought about any kind of creative person doing social media reels that they would be a potential Statista customer. Now, the question is, how do you price such a product when Canva is $4.99 a month or $7.99 if you have the professional license, and typically our entry product starts at $1,400 per year. So that's a challenge we still have to struggle. Right now, we give them like 50 crawls for free or 50 requests for free just to get sort of understand how consumers are behaving, how are they using the product. Maybe they're using only, I don't know, our simple statistic database, not the more complex ones. But it just shows that there's an endless new market of new possibilities on actually drive our data into use case that we've never been able to do this if we would have focused on our platform. So while transforming and while it's still a scary thought for me that today more than 87% of our revenue comes from Statista.com and our platform and C-Space revenue approach, I believe that within 3 years, there will be less than 25% running on that platform. And driving that transformation quickly and aggressively is something where you don't have time to test everything and to make sure and de-risk everything. You just, as I said in the beginning, you need to take a big leap of faith. At this point of time, I thought I was done with my presentation. Oh, no, I can't click anymore. Well, then I'm done with my presentation. I can't click anymore. The green one is forward, right? Oh, yeah, there it works. Okay, but then I thought there's one thing that was the highlight of what is today? We're still in November, right? Okay, that was my highlight in November because we have we are not an independent company. We don't have a PE. We were acquired by a company called Ströer. Ströer is one of the largest out-of-home advertisers. They put out those big billboards for advertising screens. It's weird why they acquired a Statista, but it's a different story. And we developed a new product. And the product is called Synthipop. Now, Synthipop is a name for synthetic populations that we have created based on our proprietary data, and we combined it, very complex, and I don't understand the math behind it, into a new product, which basically says we can have a digital person of every single person living in Germany with brand preferences, household income, whether they are married, what their university degrees, and so on, with a pretty high precision. It's a very complex, for me, very powerful product. And we thought, well, if we have this data and we can break it down to a street level, even a street number level, that an individual person, and it's fully GDPR compliant. Now, if we have this data, actually it is. You can quote me on this. On the others, maybe not, but on this, you can quote me. But why is this interesting for someone like Ströer, who's doing out-of-home advertising? Today, they're mainly selling it because of foot traffic. They're advertising billboards. Now, we thought, oh, that would be amazing. We have this great data population, and now we can give it to Ströer, and we just match their assets together with our synthetic population, suddenly can sort of sell their, if Chanel comes and they say want to sell their handbags that we saw in Mitch's presentations, we can say, okay, there's a high likelihood that that person living in that street buys luxury products, and we can select the best optimal out-of-home advertising spaces depending on brand campaigns that customer wants and charge a higher price. How do you explain this to someone who does out-of-home advertising? And this is our first go at it. And let me read this out. We can use a combination of synthetic population with 40 plus attributes for digital twin based on our proprietary Statista data consumer panels together with Statista Connect, our MCP server, gen-enabled. I have no idea, right? So this was the first one in an email. I said, this doesn't work. You will never get an answer if you send this email. I just get a very angry email from my boss probably saying, what the hell? And then we said, okay, yeah. Oh, this is my favorite gift, by the way. So if you ever work at Statista, you will see this quite often. Then the alternative was this. Let's put this into a presentation. Everybody loves good PowerPoint presentations, right? So we do PowerPoint presentation. And explaining what Synthipop is, how it works, is it reliable, and then how we derive it, and how does this population really, what attributes are in there, and what's the distribution. That was so complicated. So actually we built a wonderful 25-page PowerPoint deck that never seen a customer. And then Colin, working our product, he said, you know what, Marc? When is the meeting? I said, it's 2 days from today. He said, it's okay, no worries. I said, what does no worry mean? I'll show them how it works. I said, what do you mean I show them how it works? Well, this is for me the coolest thing ever. I have a video now for you, the last one, I promise. But this is Colin. Colin is maybe not the greatest salesperson, but what he managed to do is to build not a prototype, not a mock-up, not a wireframe, but a product that it's locally hosted, right? And it's not in production. You can't put it into production because the backend is not there. But it is amazingly strong to explain of what Synthipop can do for Ströer. So let's please play the video.
I want to show the integration of Synthipop and Statista Connect. It's essentially our map, but targeted at physical advertising capabilities using Ströer's out-of-home assets. And so we have loaded up the Synthipop database, the synthetic population all the way down to street level, actually street number level. So very detailed. We also have all of the Ströer assets, billboards, posters, pop-ups, etc., and you can see them here. And so let's see what we can do. I would like to sell a line of expensive watches in Hamburg. And so the first thing we'll do is learn about the luxury watch market. We'll use Statista Connect for that and grab a bunch of supporting data analysis. And you can see that happening here. Found some data. So we'll make a profile. It's a pretty basic profile. We'll refine that as we go. And so now that I have that profile, I'll go to the synthetic population and find those people. And once I have found those people, what I'll do is, or what the system does, is it looks at the destroyer inventory, and it's going to analyze for reach, cost, and show us which specific of those assets this campaign should use. And so you can see that here. Here's an asset, destroy an asset. Here's the address and the cost information. And this is the filtered population. And you can see that by looking at the population only. It's larger than, the population is larger than the filtered population, so that's good. Let's, you know what, I don't like Hamburg. Let's try this in Munich.
All right, I mean, as I said, maybe he's not the best salesperson. But what happened was, we actually went in a meeting with the people from Ströer, and we told them, listen, we've built this product to explain you what Synthipop can do. Tell me an advertising campaign you're currently running. And they say, actually, they were doing a campaign on the luxury market, but it wasn't watches. I think it was cars. They were doing a campaign for BMW. And they said there was this new I-series coming out, and they say target group is women in that age bracket or young families and so on. And we said, give us the profile of your target customer. And then we actually put this in there saying, please do a marketing campaign, target those and those women, no. And then please make sure that these are either existing BMW owners or people who have expressed an interest in BMW, because we have this data in our synthetic panel. And they were like, what the hell? It was a different kind of selling. I could have had 100 presentations with me. I could have had the best salesperson in the room. But just showing the product and showing the real value, that was for me one of those delight moments. They would say, this is not just a database. This is something that makes the life of sort of what is the best out-of-home offers, out-of-home advertising spaces for my life so much more valuable. And it's so easy to use that was really a really big thing. So I think what this does basically is, it took him 8 hours to build this. There was nothing, he only had the database. It took him 8 hours, including scraping the entire Ströer out-of-home asset database. I don't know whether that was legal or not. And they were a little bit concerned about this, that all this information is publicly, not really publicly available, but technically you could access it. And I think this really means that, that I think the capabilities of product will change. And I think it's not about giving wireframes to a customer or doing mock-ups or doing customer interviews. I think with the new technology developments that we have with vibe coding, it's like you bring a product in front of a customer and the iteration is so much faster. And it also will change the way how we were selling. We will not sell by presentations anymore. I don't think so. I think we can custom build for large customers every time a new prototype that really fits their needs. And it's such a different experience. It's actually super nice and pleasurable to actually do a sales call like this and not showing 20 slides of presentation, then people still don't understand what you're talking about. So that actually really helped. So last thing. Listen, I've worked 25 years at a large retailer, and I experienced a transformation from catalog sales to online sales. I was actually working in catalog sales and e-commerce transformation before Amazon was even present in Germany. And I saw industries transforming and companies defaulting. And I've seen this in payment. I worked at Klarna before, as I said. I saw this in mobility. We were a strong competitor to Uber. And I think it's normal that industries will go through change and will be disrupted. But I think this is different. This is different. This is different because it happened 3 things at the same time. A, it's happened to all the industries in all the countries in the world at the same time. The second thing, it happens at an unprecedented speed. And the third thing is, we've just been talking about AI. We haven't been talking about robotics. I think if we combine AI and robotics, the entire economic society will change. And I think the one thing is this think of leap of faith, taking very risky decisions to make sure that your not to make sure, but give your company a chance to actually be successful. I think this will be more and more something that we need to do. I think the times where we can lay back and have long strategy sessions and think about how the future might look in 5 years down the road, as I did when I started to work, these times are over. They're not coming back, and it will only accelerate. And I think embracing it, everything that we do, whether it comes to vibe coding, and you can imagine the shit that we got from our CTO in terms of, oh, you can't do this, and this is super risky, and don't show this to a customer, and so on. Yes, but I think if we don't do this, someone else will do this. And there's a huge opportunity out there. It's a lot of fun if you like risk. It sucks if you're risk averse. So all of you, please become more risk happy, prone, whatever the right word is. And I think then it could be a super interesting ride. I always compare it to a roller coaster ride. And when I hire new people, I am interviewing and sort of having a 1-hour conversation with every new joiner in our company, and it's a lot of effort on my side. But I tell that person, the next 3 months, take enough time to see whether you want to be here. Because the worst thing that you want to have in a company, people who don't want to be there in a time where change is constant and it doesn't stop. And I think that will impact not only the product domain, it will impact engineering just as much as sales, as operations, as finance, as everyone. It will be all across the board. So it will be fascinating, but sometimes a little bit scary, a little bit like a roller coaster ride. So key takeaways, and then I'm done. First, highly transformative times. Normal product development frameworks probably don't work anymore that way, or at least 50% of the time they will not work. Second is you can drive massive efficiency, or we saw that we could drive massive efficiency if we zero-base when we use AI for our existing processes. And zero-basing not only from the end product, the process, but also resulting organizational changes that are needed. Third thing is we need to rethink the skill set for managers, and I think that's the biggest challenge. How do we enable a workforce that isn't there yet? Well, 10% of your workforce might be there, but there's also no formal training, and I don't even know if formal training would work, because it's like, imagine we're all working with Microsoft Office, and suddenly you have 95% of the people who've never worked in Microsoft Office. How quickly can you train them? I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I see. Last but not least, and then I end up, is every company, in every industry, in every market will need to transform. And product is right at the leading, spearhead of this, because that's what your customers see first. So thank you very much for listening. It was a pleasure being here, and